Surprisingly, I didn't think this would happen, but I've actually really missed making content for the channel these last 3 days. Um, and I can't spend a ton of time, unfortunately, so I have to do another movie review. I do want to get back to the Book of Revelation. I'm also working on a 3-part series on Graham Oppy and dealing with a couple of his. I'm kind of analyzing his response to theistic arguments, and I think that should be. Well, I hope it's interesting. I think his argumentation is his way of thinking about things is pretty fascinating. He's been eye opening for me because I don't want to spend a lot of time on this. I'll just say he's been eye opening to me because I see he handles atheism differently than other atheists, and it's very interesting. So I may even need for this review, I might need to get the zany professor in there, but I do also think as a Christian channel, as I said, I've kind of analyzed these movies from a Christian worldview to the best of my abilities. Some of them just can't, I won't be able to do that very much, and others I can. This one, I have some things to say about it. So I might have to bring the zany professor in here. So the so the Big Red One is a Lee Marvin film. I thought that was a '60s movie. I did not want to watch this movie. I never wanted to watch it. But it's as part of the retrospective, I know about it and I've always heard of it. In fact, if you've ever seen Sleepless in Seattle, they talk about it a little bit. Pretty funny scene. So I was like, okay, well, I mean, I gotta watch it. I've heard about it forever. So the defining war movies of my generation is probably either Platoon or Saving Private Ryan. Um, Saving Private Ryan for its technical prowess. It was. I went to a theater to see that, and it was almost. I was actually exhausted. I have bigger bags on my eyes than I do now. I was actually exhausted when I left the theater. And Platoon is a very dark movie that, if you're very sensitive to language, really it's just a very dark film. And like I said, I watched it many, many years ago when I was like a teenager. And if you're sensitive to that, definitely don't watch it. In fact, one curse word has that word so often it's got the record still to this day for that word being used the most. Um, so, but that's part of actually a trilogy. Not a lot of people know that. Born on the 4th of July, and I forget the other one. I apologize for that. And so those are movies, but that said, Platoon is a very good movie, and it asks a lot of big questions about humanity, the United States, war. Some of those questions I don't think are legitimate. Some are, and but I didn't fight in that war, and so this was a movie made by someone who was in the actual war. So when I got to the Big Red One, it makes watching it a chore. It was actually a chore to watch, and the reason why is because in Saving Private Ryan and even in Platoon, there was no demand of your imagination to make this a war movie. You felt like you were in a war. It demanded your full attention. These movies demanded your attention. You weren't going to look away. I mean, you couldn't close your eyes. You had to be in the middle of it. And this movie relies on a technique um, of older action movies, which is to get that camera in real nice and tight, have the actor act, right? Play your sound effects, and really hope the audience just uses its imagination. The opening beach scene is like this. It's Omaha Beach, and it's not Omaha Beach. Boy, is it nothing like Saving Private Ryan. It's just the cameras again are in real tight, and you can tell what they're doing. It's a very old technique, still used on television today, to give you the impression that you're seeing something more than what's really there. I remember it might be worth your time to look this up if you don't want to watch this movie. The opening scene on Omaha Beach, the Germans are waiting, and they didn't have the budget, I guess, to show the ships coming in. So all of a sudden they just cut, and the Americans are there. It is like out of the movie Airplane. Now, if you haven't seen Airplane, that is one of these comedies that's just over the top, constant comedy. The jokes are deliberately bad, deliberately campy, deliberately corny, just to tell you as many jokes in volume as they can. And the volume of jokes is what ends up being funny. I'm a big fan of Airplane and Naked Gun. That's what it felt like. And I'm like, this is supposed to be a war movie, and it feels like watching Airplane in some scenes. In the 70s and in the 80s, there was a big one of the techniques used there wasn't shorthand in movie making at this time. Now, what do I mean? There was shorthand, but it was a little bit different than shorthand from today. Today, if someone was going to go somewhere, you wouldn't see them go to their car, right? They would say they're going to go there, camera cuts are there. Okay, that, like everything else in life, took time to develop, to get the audiences in the mindset of going somewhere, hinting that the next scene is going to be somewhere else. Those kind of techniques are used rather than 70s techniques of showing characters walking to the location. I remember there's a movie called Somewhere in Time about a guy. It's actually really good, but it's about a guy that goes back in time to meet this woman, and it shows him he's going to the Grand Hotel, and I guess they wanted to show you the surrounding area, and he's in his car and he's driving, and then he's walking, and then you're seeing the front. It's literally 2-3 minutes of just this guy traveling. You just wouldn't do that today because the audience will tolerate it. And oh man, there's some of that in this movie. And the movie's 3 hours long. And it's the reason why is that kind of stuff. And you're just like, I just can't believe that they were still doing this. All right, on to some big ticket items. Well, not big ticket items, but I didn't mean for this review to be this long, but I have to talk about this. So I grew up in the 70s. And the adult males that I was around were macho men. And macho men talk big trash. They talk big trash. And when I was a kid, I just hated that. I just rejected it as a child. Now, I want to be careful and say what we're seeing with like the feminization of males and treating males as, second class citizens or whatever, never catering to males in media in different forms and fashions. Obviously, I have issues with that, but I'm not talking about that. That's another extreme. I'm talking about this extreme that I used to deal with just big trash talk about how I would do this or I would do that. And then when push came to shove, it was never what people said it was going to be. And I remember as a kid just being like, I just kind of rejected it. It was in movies. It was with people I knew. And I just hate it. In fact, I have a friend that's kind of like that. And I'm just sort of like, I don't get it. I don't get it. He's kind of a throwback. He's real young. And he's like, I'm like, wow, it's like you came from a time machine from the 70s where everybody talked about how great they were and stuff. I'm making him sound like a jerk. He's not a jerk, but it's just kind of funny. He's actually a great guy, but it's just sort of like, oh man, I don't like that kind of attitude. This movie personifies that attitude. You have the dude, he's just chomping on a cigar no matter what the situation. Lee Marvin and his one-liners. I know I sound like the old man complaining, you and your one-liners. But I mean, it's just so stupid, like no matter what the situation, he's going to be chomping on that. Not Lee Marvin, it's some other character. He's going to be chomping on his cigar. He's going to have his cigar no matter what. Oh man, downtime, bullets whizzing over his head. He's going to have his cigar. And Lee Marvin's going to have his one-liners. It's just so lame. But they're spending the movie trying to make them look like tough guys. I just hate that garbage. And I'm watching it just going, rolling my eyes all the time. It's like, yeah, that's how veterans. I've talked to World War II veterans. I've hung out with them and talked about war with them, and none of them are like that. That is some. I think I could be wrong about this. Permit me some time to speculate. This is way longer than I meant for it to be, probably because I haven't been able to make any videos. But I wonder if the way the people that are older than me, the generation before me, were raised by that generation of World War II vets. And I wonder if the macho man thing comes from their perception of these World War II vets. Because I've talked to the World War II vets and they're not like that. But it seems like the generation after that, the males after that, just a lot of big talk. Okay, I don't mean to get on, but there's a lot of that in this movie. A whole lot of that. And if you don't like that, you will definitely not like this. I just couldn't stand it. Gratuitous amount of combat, as expected. Like a musical, you're watching the story, and all of a sudden, bursting out into the song, and the story has to stop, and you gotta wait. And I see action movies as not much better than musicals in this way. So the combat scenes, frankly, I just put them on 1.5 speed and was just kind of like doing this, going, all right, can we get, okay, explosion, great. People firing guns, that's great. Can we move on? Because it wasn't progressing the story. The greatest action movie I've ever seen is The Road Warrior, because there is this subtle storytelling in the action scenes. There is no action scene in that movie there for the sake of action. They are there to progress. There's these little hidden, like, psychological stories being told. And you're learning about the main character through these action scenes. And they're so good. And I don't care. I've seen those scenes so many times. I don't care about the action, but the story it's telling is so good. This movie is like, yeah, we're gonna have some explosions over here and some bullets whizzing over there, and it's just such a bore. I know yeah, the movie was not actually boring. I'm not saying that. I'm saying and some of that has to do with pacing. What I mean by pacing is the editing. It's just done in a clip that keeps your eyes trained on the screen and invested to some degree, and that is in this movie. So I mean, I would say in the case of just someone who wants to be purely entertained, and you want a war movie, and you don't really care like getting into the depths of thinking about all these things, then it's no problem. But you could maybe enjoy it. But I need more than that from a film for myself. All right, now one last thing. National Socialism. I guess that's what I have to call it. You know what I'm talking about. It's World War II. So you have these like cheeky one-liners, tough men running around, just taking. It's the 70s macho men. What if they were in World War II, and they're just too tough for the world. And then they tackle the Holocaust. I think you're not supposed to say that on YouTube as well. Hopefully, they don't want the 5 to 6 people that might see this. Well, maybe in the future somebody will get something out of this, but they did not earn that moment. They did not earn that moment at all. And I remember going, really? You're going to talk about really? Like, you didn't. It's almost that they thought by just showing these really lame characters deal with this immense issue that it would give everything they did meaning, right? We're just going to tack on this at the end and it gives it all meaning. And it didn't work. If that's what they were doing, it failed. miserably. I remember just sitting there going, "No, it was so cringy." I was like, don't do this. Don't have these guys deal with it. What are you going to do? Have them cry? What's going to, you know what I mean? What's going to happen? How the tough guys, you know how they handled it, like tough guys. It's just, oh, you want to talk about unearned moment, man. And not only that, when there actually has been good movies made about that subject matter, it looks even worse. And it was, I'm just going to leave it as an unearned moment. Additionally, this was a stupid movie, so it added nothing to the conversation. You would never hear someone talk about the subject and go, draw from your knowledge from watching this movie to speak intelligently about that subject, or add some thought that might bless someone's life or something like that. About, you wouldn't do that because there's nothing like that there. This movie was like if you really wanted a steak dinner and someone just gave you a half a bag of Doritos. That's what this movie is. If you wanted a great movie, you're out of luck. If you wanted a good war movie, you're out of luck. It's not even that. I'm good. I think I gave it 2 stars because some people might like these actors. For example, there's a guy from Revenge on the Nerds on there playing a tough guy. Okay, he's the cigar chomper. But some people get enjoyment out of that, and if you like that, it's here. So sorry for the length, but it's good to be back. So.